Trying to defend yourself in a war against Russia is no joke. In its efforts to defend itself against Putin's aggressive invasion, Ukraine has needed all the help it can get. Here's how a shipment of US Vietnam War weapons could help Ukraine turn the tide against Russia's military. After Russia invaded its smaller neighbor in February, the United States offered to evacuate Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky from the capital. But in a now famous statement of his resolve, Zelensky responded that the fight is here. I need ammunition, not a ride. And soon Western countries were happy to grant his wish. In the months since the war began, the US, NATO, and others have supplied Ukraine with an enormous amount of military aid. In fact, the United States alone has contributed over $18.6 billion since February. This has mostly taken the form of lethal modern weaponry, including the high-mobility artillery rocket systems or HIMARS, Javelin anti-tank missiles, self-destructing Phoenix Ghost drones, and many others. Weapons like these stopped the invasion in its tracks and have helped Ukraine successfully fight back Russian troops all year. As the war transitioned from urban combat to a devastating artillery slugfest in the east of the country, obtaining new firepower has become a major factor in success or defeat. Accordingly, in the past few months, Western assistance to Ukraine has stepped up again. It has started to allow Ukrainian troops to achieve artillery superiority over Russia, driving them out of major cities like Kherson. Ukraine is now firing as many artillery shells as Russia, while satellite-guided targeting is making their strikes longer range and more precise. But modern weaponry isn't the only technology making an appearance on the battlefield. Recently, the US has once again expanded its security assistance to Ukraine. In addition to contemporary weapons, they have made plans to supply Ukraine with upgraded armaments from the era of the Vietnam War. Other NATO countries are expected to follow suit, potentially supplying Ukrainians with a major new source of firepower. While many consider them more fit for a museum, these older weapon systems could still be lethal. They could even help Ukraine counter some of Russia's biggest new threats. But what exactly are these weapons, and how much of an edge will they give Ukraine in the coming months? The main piece of Vietnam-era military hardware currently being delivered to Ukraine are MIM-23 Hawk missile systems. Developed by Raytheon from 1952 onwards, Hawk stands for Homing All the Way Killer, a nod to the missile's guided targeting. A medium to long-range surface-to-air missile, the Hawk was first put into service in 1959. In those days, the US was increasing its involvement in Vietnam, where the Hawk was used extensively. Designed as a more mobile counterpart to the even older MIM-14 Nike Hercules missile, the Hawk emphasized portability over range and altitude. Full of complex components, the original system was also notoriously unreliable and prone to breakdowns. It had a kill-shot probability of just over 50% and an average time of only 43 hours between repairs. Because of this, the US military spent decades updating the Hawk missiles, partially through the addition of a semi-active radar homing guidance system. This radar upgrade vastly improved the Hawk's accuracy, and the new model, known as the Improved Hawk or iHawk, entered service in 1971. Over the next 20 years, the iHawk continued to be upgraded with the addition of electronic jamming measures and new warheads for use against short-range targets. These chances increased the iHawk's killshot percentage to over 85%, making it into a potent weapon. The models being sent to Ukraine are slightly older, but can intercept aerial targets 45 to 50 kilometers, 28 to 31 miles away, at an altitude of 65,000 feet, 20,000 meters. Using solid fuel propellant, the Hawks can reach a maximum speed of Mach 2.4. Each missile is roughly 1,300 pounds, 600 kilograms, and 17 feet, 5.2 meters, in length, with a 119-pound fragmentation warhead that can deal some serious damage. Hawk missiles are definitely outdated. They were retired by the US Marine Corps in 2002 and replaced by the more powerful Patriot system even earlier. The US has so far refused to send Patriot missiles to Ukraine, since doing so would require US soldiers on the ground to operate. Even so, Hawks are a serious upgrade to the Stinger missiles Ukraine has been given so far. While Stingers can be carried by a single soldier, they have far less range and destructive power. In contrast, Hawk missiles are better known for shooting down higher-altitude Russian fighter jets. They can also more effectively counter the Iranian-made Shahed kamikaze drones, which Russia has been using to wreak havoc on Ukraine's cities. The main advantage of the Shahed drones is that they are cheap and numerous. Russia has reportedly ordered over 2,400 of them from Iran. The drones are fired in groups, so even if most are shot down, a few can usually get through to dive bomb their unlucky target. Considering Ukraine only has so many surface-to-air missiles, there is a high chance that this keeps happening. And since each Shahed drone costs only $20,000, it's a waste to destroy them with powerful air defenses like the long-range NASAMS missiles, which can cost over $1.2 million per shot. But Hawk missiles could be the perfect solution for countering the threat from kamikaze drones. While not nearly as cheap as Shahed drones, their age does make them inexpensive for missiles, at roughly $250,000 each. And while the US hasn't disclosed how many Hawk missiles it currently has or is sending to Ukraine, there are probably a lot of them. At the peak of their production in the 1980s, the US had over 27,000 Hawk missiles in its inventory. While most of these are less advanced than the later models, they could provide a real boost to Ukrainian firepower. There's just one hitch in this plan: the Hawk launchers. The missiles are transported and fired from rolling M192 launchers, which can be wheeled along the ground with 3 Hawk missiles mounted on the back. The issue? The US might not have any in working condition. Because of their extended time in storage, an American official told Reuters that the country's Hawk launchers are in disrepair. However, one partial solution to this has come from an unlikely source: Spain. The European country announced that it would send 4 of its own Hawk launchers to the Ukraine, to be paired with the refurbished US missiles. Ukraine may also create some homemade solutions, as they've successfully adapted lots of other old-school military technology. The first Hawk missiles will likely be on their way to Ukraine soon, especially since they are being sent through the Presidential Drawdown Authority, or PDA. The PDA is a legal tool allowing the US president to transfer military equipment from storage without congressional approval in emergencies. The Biden administration has already issued the PDA extensively to support Ukraine. Since August 2021, it has ordered 11 drawdowns of military equipment into the country. Congress has been on board as well, increasing the cap of the drawdowns from $100 million to nearly $11 billion for this year. Hawk missiles are just the latest part of this, and despite their age, they could prove to be a valuable piece of military assistance. Ukraine will certainly need all the weaponry it can get hold of, as the conflict doesn't look likely to stop anytime soon. And as it drags on, odd weapons deals like this one could become much more common. Why? Mainly because the war has shaken up the global arms industry, creating sometimes surprising results like the Hawk missiles being sent to Ukraine. It's dramatically increased the demand for weapons by both Russia and Ukraine, but also by surrounding countries worried about more Russian aggression. In another recent example of this, Poland has signed a $5.8 billion defense contract with South Korea, far from one of its usual suppliers of weaponry. The deal includes hundreds of artillery rocket launchers, along with tanks and howitzers that Poland hopes will beef up its deterrence against Russia. And South Korea is just one of a number of countries whose weapons are now in high demand. Iran's choice to begin supplying Russia with drones is also a sign of this, as is Turkey's recent decision to sell similar weapons to Ukraine. Month by month, more countries seem to be getting sucked into the conflict, and since Russia accounts for nearly 20% of the global arms trade, its recent battlefield failures could also cause a steep decline in demand for their products. As this happens, China may also begin to take Russia's place as a major weapons supplier. Many other countries, from India to Bulgaria, are already working to create self-sufficient defense industries, in another sign of geopolitical change. Just like the Hawk missiles heading to Ukraine, these unusual decisions are all a product of the massive disruptions caused by 9 months of war in Europe. And as weapons continue to flood into the country, more unexpected changes will probably keep coming. But what do you think? Will the Hawk missiles give Ukraine the edge it needs to win the war? Will we see more unusual weapons deals in the coming year? Let us know in the comments below.